Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
We are live, episode 349 of the Better on Draft podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday evening. I appreciate you all listening live. And of course, if you are listening via the podcast, you can join us live 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, Kick, Twitch, X, YouTube, all the fun stuff. Let's go around and see what everybody is drinking, starting with Rob. Rob, what do you got?
Today I've got a Zwickel from Urban Chestnut Brewing. It's the year of the lager, so manifest it.
Wendy, what about you?
I am drinking, surprisingly, a sour from WildWorks Brewing Company. It is their Treetop Boba. I have been away from sours for a while. This is stinking delicious.
Daniel?
So I'm drinking a mishmash of what people left in my house. Right now I am working on a 9.1% Sierra Nevada Big Little Things IPA.
And for myself, I am drinking a Mean Old Tom from the Maine Beer Company, a delicious stout aged on natural vanilla beans.
And obviously not picked up in Maine. So
no, it was not picked up in Maine. It was in fact picked up in Ohio. Stopped by my for Mother's Day a couple months ago. My godmother loves her Yuengling because she can get it cheap and it's great boat beer. So I went and bought 5 cases of Yuengling.
So wait, let me make sure I understood. You said you have for 4 Mother's Days. You have 4 mothers?
Four FOR Mother's Day.
Oh, sorry. So I'm like 4 mothers.
Not 4. That sounds like a interesting, like a brewery name. Like we'll call ourselves 4 Mothers. You know, there's like 2 brothers and 5 guys and 3 something, I'm sure.
4
3
fathers.
Floyds. There you go.
5 fathers. And
yeah, 4 mothers. That's going to be our brewery when we decide to make it. It has been a minute since we've had a show. We were supposed to have a show last week, but a friendly little splinter or rat, if you will, decided to get into my air conditioning and commit seppuku, destroy the capacitor and destroy my AC in the process. So my AC didn't even last 11 months, but it has since been fixed. I am still sweating bullets up here because I don't want to pay money for running AC during the high time on DTE life. So for those of you not in Michigan, 3 to 7 is when power is more expensive here in Michigan, Monday through Friday. Sir. So we,
sir.
Yes.
It's 8:30 there. Right now.
I'm sorry. My entire house didn't become freezing cold in an hour and a half of playing the AC. I don't know how AC works where you are.
Well, I've got multiple AC units. I've got 2 AC units, so it's pretty easy to cool down part of the house.
I mean, it's not as bad as Dan, were you ever in my apartment in Detroit when there was no AC? And
Oh yeah. I remember that.
Those were days where they would not turn on the AC. There's like a year where we didn't even start AC until July. And I was on the 17th floor or 16th floor. And yeah, it would get so hot, so steamy. The first year I think we moved there and they didn't have like AC on right away. We got them to buy us a window unit that was portable so we could move it from one room to the next. It was on wheels. And that serviced us, but for the most part, I mean, that means that just one of the room was freezing cold and then the other room was like 90 degrees. There's no happy medium in that facility. Yeah, Wendy, I kept interrupting you. What were you trying to say?
Never mind.
I'm sorry. I do apologize.
Okay. No, it'll get us sidetracked on a totally different conversation, so we'll talk about it later.
You can't do that.
We got people in the chat saying what they're drinking. Frank saying a Trumer Pills. Chris Connor says hello. If you're listening live, of course, as we mentioned, talk to us in the chat. We will respond to you. We've got a nice, easy breezy day today. We're going to be talking about a lot of sponsored beers, I guess you could say, celebrity sponsored beers that are just starting to come out. And going to go over a little bit of the news. There's a lot of CEOs that are retiring as we're starting to see a lot of the end of the old guard leave. We saw it, already with Anchor Brewing shuttering and Larry Bell selling to New Belgium. A lot of these things are just time-wise. You can't necessarily be a CEO forever. You can't stay in business forever. And especially a CEO of a brewery, you're not just like it's not a title where you're just kind of like making decisions and that's it. You're probably doing a lot of the work, including still brewing and making more decisions than most CEOs within like a regular industry, a retail financial industry. The first thing I want to talk about, and we'll kind of go through and everyone will kind of talk about topics they want to do. But I did see somebody post in our little prep document about the Kelsey brothers creating a beer. Who was that? Was that you, Wendy?
Sure was.
What beer are they making? What's going on with the Kelsey?
So it started showing up in my newsfeed like a week ago. They are now part owners of Garage Beer, which is actually its own brand. You started out beer by Braxton Brewing in Cincinnati. And last year they spun it off into its own brand. So Garage Beer is made in Columbus now. And it's got two types of beer that they make, the light beer and the light beer with lime. So I did pick it up. I do have some.
Nice. To translate for Grieg, who was on our last guest, that's garage or garage.
Go on, Wendy.
So I just thought it was interesting that it's like just killing me with articles. It seems like every other article is an article about the fact that they bought into this brewery. It makes sense to me that they would buy into it because it is something local for them. It's kind of, they seem to be very hometownish, and now their name is everywhere. So if they want to promote something, now is the time to do it.
Is this the beer, the one that was drinking shirtless in 10-degree weather at the football stadium?
Yeah, that
was I think he was asking it. Yeah, I don't think that's what he was drinking, but yes, that is one of the Kelsey brothers for sure. I think they have an interesting vibe, especially for how public they are. Obviously, Jason and Travis have their own podcast. And then Jason's story is like the first date with his wife. He got so drunk that he passed out. And
shocking.
I mean, he's still with her, so I guess things are going well. And of course, Travis is dating that one singer. I'm trying to think of what her name is. I don't know. She's Madonna. A big singer. She's got her own. I mean, Madonna probably would go for someone as young as Travis Kelce.
No,
so.
Well, she likes them young, but she likes the black guys. So
so maybe one of his teammates. No,
she married Ricky, who is the opposite of that.
She married who?
Guy Ritchie, who is the opposite of that. Yeah. Of course, it didn't last. So,
I mean, she married Sean Penn too. So what's that tell you?
She doesn't have. Never mind. We're not going to.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Welcome to E Entertainment News. I'm your host, Ken. No. So the Kelsey brothers, it makes sense, especially with just the kind of way they present themselves and how they're kind of out and about. And of course, as two of the biggest names out there, Jason Kelce, probably the biggest center anybody's ever heard of. And Travis Kelce, multiple time Super Bowl winner and dating Taylor Swift. They're cashing in on their name. Hopefully they don't have too much CTE from playing football. But speaking of CTE, there is another celebrity that decided to get into the beer game, and that is Hulk Hogan.
Oh yeah, I saw this.
Creating the Real American Lager, partnering with I'm trying to figure out the name of the brewery, but it is his own beer. Obviously it's a light lager at 4.2%, I believe. So with the Kelsey brothers, Wendy, you said you had their beer. Hulk Hogan has his own beer. I've had the Stone Cold beer. What other, is there a celebrity endorsed or created beer that you've enjoyed? And this is for anyone on the panel.
The Woot Stout.
The
Will Wheaton.
Such a good beer.
And he doesn't even drink anymore.
Oh,
really?
I'm pretty sure he went sober.
Is that medical wise, or do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I just remember reading about it a while ago because he's one of my favorite, like, I love to listen to him talk. He narrated a book, the Ready Player One and Ready Player Two, and I've listened to it over and over again because he does such a good job. So
It was funny.
I'm a fan.
He narrated Ready Player One, and he's a major character in Ready Player One. So it was kind of funny.
I remember back when there was like a lot of beer related shows on TV, like the Dark Horse show, and there was a show where a person was like going and meeting different homebrew clubs and stuff. There was the Will Wheaton episode, and you see him and he's got his like brewer's booklet and he has all of his notes and stuff. Like he took brewing very, very seriously, including home brewing. So yeah, Woot Stout. I don't think I've ever had a bad Woot Stout, but is there other than Woot Stout, is there another beer that you guys enjoyed? I know I like the lager from El Segundo for Stone Cold. That was a very, very good, very crushable beer. Rob,
the Iron Maiden one,
Trooper
is pretty decent.
I was trying to lead Dan into that because I know Dan loves Trooper.
I mean, I like the 6.66 version better. It has so much more flavor to it. Kiss made that beer Destroyer, which was kind of good. You can't go wrong with some of the beers that Three Floyds made. I'm trying to think of the names of them off the top of my head.
Permanent Funeral is one of my favorite
Permanent
beers.
Funeral. Yes.
That was done with
that
Pig
one,
Destroyer.
Yes, that one is so good. And then, of course, don't forget the one that we talked about way back in the day, and that's Badass American Lager.
That was brewed at a handful of places too. That was brewed at Atwater, Michigan Brewing Company. Is it Michigan Beer Company? It was one of the two. One that it's Michigan. Well, it's now Michigan Brewing Works after he filed for bankruptcy after his parents sued him. But yeah, Atwater did it. I know they contracted it over at Brew Detroit, but I don't think it's even getting made anymore. I think that's gone by the wayside.
Oh, that's too bad. He should bring that back.
I mean, for a guy who let's be honest, the whole Bud Light thing, like you easily had an opportunity to bring back your beer, get someone to brew your beer and make something out of it. And if you could have figured out some type of distro with that, you probably could have made he could have made a decent killing off of that culture war. I don't know if anyone agrees with me or not, but again,
well, let's be real, though. Is Kid Rock really hurting for money where he has to go all in on beer?
I mean, I know Kid Rock does a lot of tours and stuff, but I feel like we're in an issue of hometown disadvantage. Like we see him, selling out shows over at DTE for like 4 nights in a row. But is that because it's Michigan or is that because it's Kid Rock?
No, dude sells out everywhere. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
I don't know these now. That was a legitimate question because how many times have I always bring the reference to when Billy Talent came to town, and I know that's a lot smaller than Kid Rock, but Billy Talent came to town in 2004, and they were just at the Warped Tour, and they were playing on this small stage, and they had to move the band at the next stage over because the overflow crowd was so big. So I always think a little bit more when it comes to hometown or local bands, because we get Canadian bands here all the time. I mean, before anyone else gets to hear them, 89X did a really good job. They don't exist anymore. Did a really good job about finding these. Frank has asked, has anybody tried the Troy Aikman beer? I didn't know
Troy Aikman beer.
There is apparently a Troy Aikman beer. Wendy, do you know about it or do you have it up?
I just read about it, but that was it. I've never gotten the chance to try it. I'm going to be honest. The only reason that I got garage beer is because I wanted to talk about it. But the celebrity thing, I laugh all the time and say I would totally get that. But chances are, unless it's somebody that I like following or know, like if Papa Roach or Matchbox 20 did a beer, I would probably go buy it. But other than that, probably not.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other. So like there's the bigger ones. Like I think 311 did a beer. Obviously Hansen did the beer with hops as the name of their beer. I'm always good for a good pun too. But is there well, Wendy said Matchbox 20 and Papa Roach. Is there a celebrity that you like that if you saw them make a beverage that you would go right for it? I know we've asked this question before.
Well,
Is
I
there-
have tried Jason Momoa's vodka.
Jason Momoa has a vodka.
I'm still waiting on him to open that brewery that was rumored in Detroit too.
I feel like it's a missed opportunity to make an Aquavit as Aquaman.
Right?
And
Uh,
I guess
was
if it was a bigger market, it would make sense.
I mean, that's true too.
was that
But I mean, it
Hanson
is
beer a
Jason
Blondale?
Momoa. He makes his own market. Rob, what was that?
Was the Hanson beer a Blondale?
I don't think so. I think it was just an IPA. I think it was during like I think that's why they called it hops instead of bop. John says Jim Gaffigan whiskey. There is so many celebrity endorsed boozes out there that is just kind of hard to. Sooner or later, it just kind of loses its novelty. Maybe.
Well, same with beers too. That's the thing.
What do you mean?
Like it was big. Well, it loses a novelty either way. There's a lot of liquors like Slipknot, Anthrax, all those guys have whiskey, gin, whatever you can think of there. Same with beers. It kind of loses its novelty when everyone has their own variant. You know what I mean?
I did almost buy the Slipknot whiskey, but it was way too pricey for my whiskey tastes at the time.
I'm just kind of. Does Slipknot have something that like fits into their MO to make a whiskey, or is it just maybe happenstance that somebody was like, hey, you're Slipknot, we're a whiskey distillery, let's team up together?
A good question. I have no idea. All I know is they have one.
Well, I don't listen to Slipknot, so that was definitely on that was like one of the few new metal bands that I did not listen to.
Well, now you can get it for like 50 or 60 bucks.
It's
it
no
worth
longer
that?
overpriced.
No, it was like $300 a bottle when I first came out.
Jesus.
Wow. Yeah.
Is that
Because of the name.
secondary market, or was that like off the shelf?
No, well, I think it was probably like their first batch. Like they did it as a special fundraiser or something, I'm sure. It's the number 9 Reserve Iowa whiskey. I don't know what the difference is in Iowa whiskey, and I don't know enough about whiskey to know what an Iowa whiskey is.
I wonder if it's one of those, like, you can't call it a whiskey unless it's, a certain amount of mash versus bourbon versus location. Like, if it's not in the whiskey part of France, it's not a whiskey.
If you're looking at like a liquor store website, maybe it's in the whiskey aisle in slot 9.
Or it was the 9th version.
Yeah, could be the 9th version.
I don't know. I just assumed it was maybe a song since it was called Slot 9. Or don't they have 9 members?
Yes, there are 9 members
Oh,
in the band.
There we go.
There we go. See, I know some things. They used to be in, the magazine. Slipknot is from Iowa, Bats McGee says. So that's why they maybe emphasize that. I guess
all coming
Maybe
together.
that's it.
where it's a teamwork. The fans of the show and the hosts have come together to figure out why Slipknot called it an Iowa whiskey Slot 9, and we were able to go. So Dan, what about you? Is there any
Anyone I would run
fans?
to?
Football players, hockey players? Do you want like a formerly Phoenix Coyotes, now Utah Coyotes?
Utah
whatever?
hockey club.
Yeah.
Coyotes are still owned here. See in 4 years. The only one I can think of is, Deftones make a bunch of beers with, and so this is already one that's out there. I can't think of anyone I'd run to, but the Deftones beers that they make through Belching Beaver are really good, especially if you like Mexican lager. So that's the only one I would like. Really, only celebrity beer I'd be like, oh, let's get that because I see it and know what it is and who made it. I can't think of someone I want to have come out with something that hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of like my favorite artists and stuff that I would enjoy like going through. Obviously, if you had a like Barry Sanders did like a Lions lager or something like that with a local, or Calvin Johnson did something with maybe it's doesn't want to do it because it's a weed industry. Arcadia had a Motorhead beer too.
Nice.
There's not too many I guess maybe I'm stuck in like the 90s and 2000s worth of fandom, because the only things people I think of is like Steve Eiserman and Pavel Datsuk and
A lot of them could do with the extra little income.
I mean, I don't think Steve Eiserman's struggling for money. He's got his
Not
own
at all.
GM and hockey team, and I think Pavel took all his money and went back to Russia, and I think he's still playing in Russia.
Yeah.
For that matter, he was making a lot of money to go back to Russia. He got that hometown deal to leave Detroit. Forged Irish Stout from Conor McGregor. I'm surprised a lot of fight. Well, I wonder if there's a lot of fighters that can't get alcohol-based sponsorships due to the UFC, like Bud Light or Modelo, I think it is now, contract.
Oh, that's entirely possible. I remember Brock Lesnar was at UFC 100 when he made that comment.
After he won, he said, "I'm going to go home, drink a Coors Light because Bud Light doesn't pay me," or something like that.
Yep.
It got Joey Chestnut those exclusivity deals. So now Joey Chestnut can't participate in the Nathan's Hot Dog Challenge.
So did you guys hear that story about the whole Joey Chestnut thing? Because what I had heard is that even though he's sponsored by a vegan dog company, like a vegan hot dog company, they were going to allow him to participate and eat meat hot dogs at the competition without any issues. But the theory is that Nathan's Hot Dogs does not want someone sponsored by another hot dog company to come in and win their competition.
It's beyond a theory. Like they have an exclusivity contract. They are Nathan's Hot Dogs. You will not be sponsored by another hot dog company.
So didn't win in this contest.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, because like he wasn't going to show up in like, you know, whatever vegan hot dog apparel. Like he was going to follow by the rules and everything like that. But just because he's sponsored by a vegan hot dog company, but I hear that he's going to do a head-to-head like final challenge against Kobayashi, because Kobayashi just announced his retirement too. So I guess he was
still doing it,
exiting out of retirement for this one match. But I doubt he's gonna beat Joey Chestnut in the hot dog eating contest head-to-head. Joey Chestnut kind of like lapped him, and then there was that whole issue with, I think it was like sponsorships and stuff with Major League Eating and Kobayashi and stuff that he stopped. There's a whole ESPN 30 for 30 on these two guys.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Jesus, that is not a sport.
We're in that phase of the.
I didn't say it was or was not a sport.
It's competitive.
I mean, I guess it is. Yeah.
There was like the OJ Simpson truck chase day that was like a massive day in like sports history. So like they did an entire ESPN 30 for 30 on just that day.
Yeah, the best part of that day is when that guy called in from Howard Stern, like on live TV while that was going on. Do y'all remember that?
No, I was a child.
Yeah, you have to look it up one of these days.
Are we talking about the original OJ day? Or
yeah, during the chase. Yeah, during the chase. Yeah.
Somebody, I was watching Everybody's in LA from John Mulaney, and there was a person who they were the one that broke the chase. Like they were the one that figured out where he was and everything like that, and started chasing after him in the helicopter as a news company. And somebody mentioned that was the day the most pizzas were ever ordered in the nation.
Because everyone was glued to the TV.
Because I mean
this slow white Ford Bronco.
Yep.
I do remember that.
Well, that's the thing, is that
we had pizza.
Everyone that is old enough to remember that remembers like what they did that day, like where they were. Like that was their moment. That a lot of people remember this. And today, like a small chase for convicted criminal is third page news these days. Like nobody really cares about that kind of celebrity anymore, especially now that half the shows are B, C, and T, D tier celebrities. What other articles did we want to talk about today? I know obviously a lot of you guys prepared. I had a few things about the Ballast Point and Kings and Convicts stuff, but I want to kind of pass it off to someone while I finish doing a few other things over here.
Well, I can go.
Go, Rob.
Yeah, my article, I would bring it up, but I think the website is giving me cancer. So I won't share the link either. But it was about Deep Ellum closing their tap room. So, which in itself, I mean, that's not super big news, but they're another one of those Monster owned brands, and it follows. I remember recently, because I have a Hunapu that I'm going to pick up, but Cigar City made a similar big announcement that their their head brewer got fired, and they were turning the Cigar City brew facility into the Monster test brew facility, essentially. So small batches would be brewed there. And then Oscar Blues Austin also got closed. Squatters and Wasatch in Utah, who made the Polygamy Porter that I think the first craft beer shirt I ever bought.
Very good beer.
It was actually bought for me by my mother-in-law.
Nice.
They closed, but the original owners bought them back from Monster, or at least bought the brew pub locations back from Monster. Wasn't Monster at the time. The other brand was Perrin, and there's no news on that. But that's like 4 different trajectories from their brands. Is something like going on? Does this all make sense? They just consolidating. This is what we're going to start seeing from these big acquisitions.
Yeah, I think so. When you've got these big companies like Canarchy or Monster, whoever it is these days, you're going to see that, because they don't all know how to run these big conglomerates of different breweries that they all own. They don't know how to run them well. So when you see the good ones who was the guy? God, it's going to kill me. Who was on here about a month ago, sold out to one of the big breweries.
Spike
from Terrapin.
Yes. Yeah. They apparently know how to let them run it well, but there's a lot of these companies like Monsters. How new are they to the industry at this point? They probably don't realize they should let some of these places run on their own. They're trying to make it how they think it should be, which I think we'll see a lot of.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah.
No, I think that you're in there. That's kind of where my head's at too. I'm also thinking there's some consolidation of, I'd say, the brewing process, which is going to hurt, because I think they only brew out in the East Coast, and then Deep Ellum's in Texas. That's a long way to ship beer.
Yeah, so that's going to hurt entirely if you're taking all the beer away from all these places that brewed before. So are you telling me Cigar City, they're not going to be brewing their own beer anymore? Or is it just a tap room?
I think we're already not brewing their main beers already. But I'm pretty sure in their tap room, they brew their small batch stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. Yeah, so this is where you see some of these once big names just kind of go by the wayside because they don't know really what they're doing at this point. And maybe, Ken, you have a different opinion. I'm kind of curious.
For Monster, I mean, I think the big thing is that they have these 8 or so breweries. We'll say 8 because I know they have a lot of smaller ones than just Deep Ellum, Perrin, Cigar City, Oscar Blues. So trying to brew across the country, like, I feel like they are going to start making a proper distribution and brewing situation where they're brewing in Denver, they're brewing in Texas, they're brewing in Michigan, they're brewing on the East Coast and North Carolina, where they're going to focus on lowering their costs for distribution by brewing the beers in those locations and then having its own little smaller situated beer releases. So obviously Oscar Blues will still be at Oscar Blues, Perrin will still be at Perrin, but at some point you don't need every single one of those facilities. You're not brewing that much beer anymore. You're almost reaching into the world of what happened with Roke buying out like Dark Horse, and Roke/Dark Horse is still not creating the same amount of beer that Dark Horse used to create, just 10, 12 years ago. So I don't think that they're not in the right mindset. Obviously, just because Monster bought Canarchy doesn't mean that the Canarchy people still aren't there. I think that they have, they're focused more on the bottom line than the craft of it. Whereas Canarchy maybe focused more on the craft of it, wanting everyone to keep having their small town breweries. Because again, like, we're sure Deep Ellum is in Dallas, but like, Perrin's in Comstock Park. Like, it's near Grand Rapids, but it's not a big city. You've got Cigar City, which isn't necessarily in the largest city. you know, Oscar Blues sure is in Denver and Asheville. Like, it's still important to these cities to have these breweries. So I think Canarchy cared about keeping it craft, whereas Monster cares about the bottom line. And I don't think you're going to lose quality. I think you're just going to have different people make beer, because I remember they were starting to make Cigar City stuff up here in Perrin just years ago before the Monster buyout. And yeah, we had like the test run of like Jai Alai, and then, you know, Cigar City is like, well, people are going to buy Jai Alai in Michigan. Why would we, you know, distro it there when we could just brew it there?
Was that the
that's
one
fair.
though that they did have the quality issues that they were going to start making it there, and then they didn't continue making it because the water quality is different, so it changed the taste of the beer?
I mean, for
I
sure.
don't remember if it was them or if it was somebody else that we talked to.
I know they had that issue with Brew Detroit brewing Old Nation's M43 in Detroit, where you're going from Detroit River water or well water to Detroit River water, which is two completely different pH levels, and they had to keep trying to test it. It's the same with when we talked with, what's the Goose Island, Bourbon County. And
Bourbon
they talked
County,
about
yeah.
how, like, if you've ever listened to red barrel aged stouts and selling out, and they talk about how they are trying to brew all these like 312 stuff in New York, and at some point, like, they kept dumping these big batches, and Anheuser-Busch was like, what the fuck's going on? And the brewer's like, here's 312 from, you know, here's 312, two different ones. Tell me which one's better. And they did like 312 from Michigan, from Illinois, 312 from New York. And the people, like, they're like, this tastes like shit. And they're like, yeah, exactly. We're still trying to figure this out. Like, that's why we keep dumping it. We can't sell this stuff.
I don't think they ever did figure that one out. I can still taste the difference. And I can't get the old stuff anymore. I love that stuff.
They just not brew it in Illinois anymore?
Yeah, it's no longer. So the 312 stuff was
wow.
great. It was all Illinois corn, or Illinois wheat rather, and then it was brewed in Chicago, the 312 area code. But then now it's all in New York, and I don't know where the wheat comes from.
Well, that's the same with trying like any recipe and trying to like expand it further. And when you're changing the ingredients, as much as it's, you know, it's not Kroger brand sugar versus, you know, Walmart brand sugar. Like, it's really different tasting products that change everything. And they're not going to be able to buy in bulk the way they want, or they're not going to want to buy in bulk the way they want to from these farmers.
I sure don't know the economics of it, but there are reverse osmosis systems that smaller breweries use to, you know, play with the water quality and the water profiles, so that they can be more accurate to those location-based styles, like a Pilsner, or, you know, those sorts of things.
But like, even just in Michigan, like well water versus Detroit River, like, I'm sure Lake Michigan water, where Chicago probably gets their water, is going to be completely different than whatever's in New York. And of course, the people tasting it's going to be different. The people trying to brew it's going to be different. They're on a different system. Like, I understand the craft of it all. And I also sadly understand the AB InBev stuff. Like, why are we dumping these giant ass batches of 312? But do you really want, like, you have one bad batch of 312 and you're fucked. I mean, look at how hard Goose Island fell with their Bourbon County explosions, and they were giving refunds, like full MSRP refunds. And people like us still talk about it today. When we had Greg Hall on, and I think his name was Mike Smith from Goose Island, like, talking about it. And when you release a beer that bad, what's that, 450 North? I mean, people still joke about 450 North blowing up on shelves, and now they're like, oh yeah, all of our beer is shelf stable now. And I'm like, wow, that's, you did what every brewery's done.
Congrats.
The part of that made me the angriest, though, was that they were blaming the people who weren't keeping their beer cold and stuff like that. And people
like
were keeping. They were blaming the stores,
shops.
and they were blaming the you know, because they were one of those hype line places where you got to pull up in your car and wait in line, and they load you up. They still have beer, type of a thing.
Yeah, 450 North was definitely on the site of like Trillium, or trying to think of, I mean, Bourbon County, like Truck Chasers, like the distro and the people that want that beer, and they're like the
Treehouse.
Yeah, Treehouse. That's it. And it's the people that want the smoothie, sour, whatever beers, and these things have so much fermented sugars in it that it's surprising that honestly, it's surprising that they were able to make it shelf stable at some point.
I think part of the problem was it wasn't fermented. So there was a lot of extra sugar in
Fermenting
there.
in the can.
It's fermented in the can. Yeah, building up pressure.
Nice.
Well, part of it has to be education. Like if you're 450 North, like your sellers, if you're putting it onto a store shelf, like you need to be like, this shit needs to be on this or you're not buying our beer again. Like you have to.
I don't think they were actually distributing at that time. Like I don't think those were legit shelves that they were on.
If they're then not telling the people as they buy it, or it's not on the can, or it's not like
and they were selling the people they were wrong for not keeping it refrigerated the whole time that they were driving it back from wherever.
the whole time they were dry. Oh, that's right, because they were blowing up in people's back seats and like making a giant fucking mess too. It's not like the beer was exploding in their cellar or something like that. I forgot that it was just like blowing up in their car on the way home.
Driving home, just bought it. Exploding in the car.
And
imagine if you're driving and that happens and you hear the big like shot boom and you're like, who's shooting at me?
That was the part that had me upset, with them. Like I like them now. They have figured stuff out. They walked back a lot of that, and their cans don't explode anymore. They have the proper ABV on their XXLs. They've got stuff figured out, and they actually distribute for real now. So it's kind of
for real
better. Yeah.
Well, speaking of hype chasing, Cascade Brewing just closed, which is a huge sour house. Wendy, you said you just got back into sours recently. Were you a Cascade beer brewing drinker?
No, not really. I went through a little phase where I was trying all the different sours, but I got tired of them really quick. I can't, my body only lets me have so many at a time anyways. So I just felt like they were everywhere all at once. And then I was like, I don't need these anymore.
My Discord's drinking project this month, the theme is sours. And so I have been having a lot of sours this month that I normally wouldn't have had.
Your project? Hold on.
Oh, you remember we did
more detail on this.
This was so every month we change our theme, but we had Wet January, and then we had Drinking the Alphabet in February, and in March we had to gradually increase the ABV, so each beer had to have a higher ABV than the one before.
Whoa. Like every day? Like hold on.
It's just the ones that you want to count for the project. That way you
gotcha.
you don't have to, like, I guess you could go Iron Man mode if you wanted, but
I mean, you could pull it off and not get too crazy, but
yeah, I think I had to stop around 7% just because I ran out of days of the month.
There was I believe it was the night that we did the interview with Grieg a few weeks ago, and after we were done, I went into my refrigerator and I'm like, why is everything that I have 9.5% or higher?
Is there something out of the ordinary going on there? I don't understand. Why are you?
Because I'm drinking all the low ABV stuff and not drinking the high ABV stuff. Thinking, I'll share it with friends or something like that. And
gotcha.
Then when my friends come, it's a blessing and a curse. But when my friends come, obviously they're the ones also drinking high ABV beers or fifths of booze, or we're not drinking tonight, so I brought my own non-alcoholic stuff. So then it never gets drank. Like when I used to live in my apartment in Detroit, like I can't tell you how many times like I would bring people over, like Tony, who used to live in my apartment complex too. He would watch my cats, and I would be like, go see the cat, make sure she's fed and there's water, and then go have a beer or two in my fridge. And then I'd see like 5 empties, and I'm like, what the fuck did you drink? And he's like, well, I checked on her a few times, so I had a beer or two there.
It's not just the high ABVs too. I've got a couple 750s that I really want to get to, but that's a lot of beer for one person.
Yeah,
I'm a lot smarter when it comes to buying those bigger bombers now. I just
Sip Savers.
Yeah.
These were the result of trades, and actually they're sours, so Sip Saver would probably work fine.
Well,
that is the best thing ever.
Let's bring it back to sours, because sours for me, like, the cost barrier entry to sours is just typically so big. Like I would never buy Cascade beer because it was just so expensive. Like it was just a very pricey bottle. And I'm like, well, I can go get something else. Like if I don't like this, I'm fucked. Like, here's a giant ass bottle and it's a sour beer. So I can't save it. Nobody else wants to really drink it. So I'm not going to drink it because it's just going to be so expensive to buy and pour. And of course I'm not going to pour it. So I'm going to struggle through the entire beer.
I was thrilled when my son was living at home and discovered he loves sours. And so I had someone built in to share beers with, but now he doesn't live with me, which also is good.
I think, well, I always like trying sours at like beer festivals because then I can go try like a Goza here or a sour there. Right. But at like going to Zatuna Liquor over in Rochester Hills, just south of M59 on Rochester Road, like seeing those bombers of sours, and I'm like, fucking A. And at least with Jolly Pumpkin started distroing smaller bottles and cans to where now you can drink Jolly Pumpkin and enjoy and not have to worry about if you don't like one of them and you bought a 4-pack, you can give the other 3 away. It's not like a wasted $7.50.
I could probably find it, but theirs was one of mine that I had during the sour month.
Yeah, Jolly Pumpkin does great stuff, but I feel like nobody really talks about their beer side of the brewery, like the Nubco, Grizzly Peak, Blue Tractor, North Peak. Like their beer is just so fucking good. It's a shame that everyone just kind of harps on Jolly Pumpkin, but then Ron Jeffries over at Jolly Pumpkins, like everyone talks about like how everyone that makes sours is inspired by him. So
they do good sours.
I mean, Dan, you're awfully quiet. Sours.
Like sours. I'm like, no, hate them. You know that. I'm like, oh yeah, y'all like sours. I'm like,
how about a pumpkin sour?
Oh, gee, get the fuck out of here. No one's
maybe it's like a double negative for you and you'll love it.
No, just don't even. Ken will watch you drink it though.
Upland's got a tasting room not that far from me, and I do enjoy stopping by there.
They do
because they have pumpkin sours.
They do not have pumpkin sours, or I haven't seen one. I did manage to get the kiwi sour that they haven't made in forever, which most people say is the most sour beer you're ever going to have ever. And it was pretty, lip puckering. It was bad.
That just can't be fun.
Makes me want to try it just because somebody said something that extreme about it.
Like challenge accepted.
That one was shared a long way.
Well, I had the sour over because Martin House, I think is the name of the brewery down in Metro Dallas area. They had like that sour mustard ale. Oh. And oh my God, it was, first of all, shout out to that place because I ordered a small taster, like a 3-ounce taster. Cause I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like this at all. And the guy gave me just a little sip. He's like, you're not going to like it. Like, if you're not a sour person, this is not for you, and you're going to have the worst experience of your life. It is it was just so bad. But they had like a dill sour, which was all right. And they had plenty of other beer too. But
I've got a pickle sour in my fridge right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of pickle beers that are coming out there. Bière Distillery over in Comstock, speaking over by Perrin, they had a pickle sour, and it was a homebrew contest that they do in Grand Rapids every year, and they just took the recipe and started brewing it. Like, so some amateur person, hopefully he got a little money out of it or a little recognition out of it, but after they won a contest that's now being brewed. What's this? Who posted up Gary's comment?
I did. I love Cascade and Firestone Walker, so I agree. It's party time.
Oh, when you're at a share of a bomber of Cascade. Oh, yeah. Firestone Walker was always those big ones that people would bring bombers of, or the brewery, obviously.
Yeah.
Like when those came out, you knew you were getting fucked up.
If there was a day of the week on the bottle, yeah.
I think I have something from each of those breweries in my cellar right now. I find it a little bit disturbing. I started going through my cellar a couple months ago, and I find it disturbing how much money I've probably wasted by putting stuff in there and forgetting it was there.
I wonder, so sad. Well, remember when COVID first started and everyone was doing like the drink your cellar
Oh, yeah.
stuff, and everyone was kind of like clear out their cellar. Like, I wonder what people's cellars look like today versus then. Like, are people still collecting? Because I don't think as many bottle shares that there used to be. Like, there used to be bottle shares weekly that I would get invited to, or you'd see on DACB or one of these other places where you'd see like the kill shots, and now it's a rarity that I see a kill shot anymore.
Oh, I should show you mine from last weekend.
Oh,
Apparently, we're in the wrong state.
Speaking
now.
of,
Yeah, my buddy. Well, we all have the cellar problem, right? Where we cellar beers or got into the habit of cellaring beers and not drinking them.
I
Yeah.
did, but
Yeah.
once I cleaned out my cellar a handful of years ago, it was just whatever was in the fridge. Like, I didn't have the only true thing that I ever cellared was the Griffin Cloth, the Flying Buffalo.
And Dan did his best to work his way through that.
Oh, he did. He even opened up all the pumpkin ones for some reason.
there were no pumpkin ones in there, so
I've got a few cellar beer, but my buddy was clearing his out, and this is an ongoing project that every couple of months he invites us over and we help him out with his cellar and pour out a couple that don't make it and drink the rest.
Yeah, we poured out a lot of beer that day, Dan. On the 300th
there was still a
episode.
lot left over though too.
Going through my cellar has helped me learn some of the off flavor issues
Oh,
for the Cicerone test.
yeah, that's also the downfall of cellaring beer these days is that when you're going through those beers and some of them don't make it, or they get skunked or infected, or just they waited so long. Like, that's, I just can't. If you buy beer, like, I'm definitely team. If you buy beer, unless it tells you to age it, drink it. Like, don't
It's
age
made
it.
to be drank. It's not made to be sitting there for you to stare at it.
But that's why I added the caveat, because like 120 is meant to be aged. It says best aged.
Yeah, so Goose Island does have a couple. Usually it has that yellow cap that says to age it, like the Worldwide Stout, with the whatever they decide to barrel it in.
You mean Dogfish Head?
Yeah, sorry, Dogfish Head, yes, with the Worldwide Stout. But you're right. Other than that, beer is made to be drank. Just knock it off, because it ends up getting not as good.
Right.
Yeah. So I do have 2 old cans, I should say, as I'm yelling at everyone for cellaring stuff. I do have 1 can left of Moscow Miel from Cellarman's. And
It's probably terrible now.
No, it's a mellow meal. It'll hold. And then I also have a can of Leinenkugel's chocolate shandy or whatever.
Oh,
still.
geez. Oh, man. Oh, what do we have to do to get you to drink that, like, and record it?
$1,000.
Oh, Jesus. That probably wouldn't even cover the hospital bill.
I don't think that. It's gonna be something so weird. I will bong it for $1,000.
Jesus Christ.
See, you're saying that, and I'm like, oh, that's the easiest way to drink it as fast as possible, and I don't have to keep it in my mouth that much longer. I don't have to like slowly chug it from the can.
No, you have to take a sip and hold it in your mouth for 10 seconds at a time, and then you can swallow.
I have to drink it through a straw through the can.
Yeah. Jesus.
Do you guys have any? Wendy was saying she was going through a cellar. What's your oldest beer you have at your place?
Well, I do have some of I have Founders, KBS, and CBS in there that I haven't touched. I've got all but like 2 or 3 years until I stop drinking Founders. And then, I don't know, there's some from like 5 years ago. A lot of the ones that I didn't drink during COVID were sours because they're the big bottles and I'm not going to drink it by myself. And my dad would not help with that. So he was like, nope, I don't like that.
Yeah, I did.
So,
speaking of cellaring and sharing with friends, I did give a bunch of bottles to a friend because he gave me full carte blanche of his cellar when I went to go see. It was the Golden Tate Seattle game down at the 1 yard line, 10-second runoff. It was like a Sunday night game, I think it was, and we were drinking, and he's like, you can have everything but, and it was like Red Luscious or whatever from Founders because that was his wife's favorite beer, so I couldn't touch that. I'm like, that's fine. He had Dark Lord, he had all these beers, and I'm just, I easily drank $150 worth of beer in the we had two Robs here. I easily drank like $150 worth of his beer in one night, and I felt so bad that I just started giving him a fuck ton of like beers that I had. I'm like, here you go. I'm sorry. I was like blitzed. Somebody drove me home, but I was like blitzed. I was pissed because like obviously the game ended that shitty way. Yeah, that was rough. Sports, Dan.
Yes.
Dan, what's
Yes.
going on with cricket in America?
You know, it's funny because I'm watching the U.S. versus West Indies cricket as we do this. The U.S. is in the Super 8s, and a lot of people are pissed. I don't know why they're pissed, probably because they eliminated Pakistan, but shout out to the U.S. team. They're doing really good. They earned a lot of respect against South Africa 2 days ago with how well they played. So it's going well.
I remember seeing a post from, was it like Oracle or Deliot or something like that, where one of the people's like a coder for them, and they're like, yeah,
Yes.
unlimited PTO until you come back. Like,
Yep.
why are these games so spread out? Like there's days in between games, like 4 or 5 days.
There's games every day. There's games every day. The worst part about it, and we probably don't have any other cricket people, especially unless
there are a
Sunil's
fuck ton of
listening,
people that are paying attention to cricket but have no idea what the hell's going on other than score checking, and they still don't know what it means. Wickets, balls left over,
So I'm
winning
sure
without
Sunil's-
throwing.
our friend Sunil, who likes to sit between us during poker games,
Likes
probably
to-
isn't
that's
listening.
a,
So,
it's a
but
loaded comment.
the whole thing is being catered to the Indian audience. So the U.S. has played all but 2 games at 7:30 in the morning Pacific time. So it's kind of frustrating. It's hard to grow the sport, which is the second most watched sport in the world. It's hard to grow it when you're catering to a country on the other side of the continent when the tournament's being played here. So, but yeah. So, anyways, the U.S. Came out of their group, are in the Super 8s, and have a chance to go to the semifinals, especially if they win tonight. So we'll see.
So Dan, in the North American continent, where is India? Because you said on the other side of the continent.
Oh, other side of the planet. Sorry, other side of the planet. The
All right.
Indian subcontinent. Yes,
I'm in Indiana. Is that?
that's
Close
close.
enough.
That's close.
Basic.
That's like an annex of India. So
That's like India light.
Yeah.
I mean, they're playing in
India?
the West
Nah.
Indies right now. So same thing, I guess. Thanks,
playing-
Columbus.
That's right.
Trying to figure out what you were saying there. But
Are they catering to
caught
the
it
East
at the
Indies?
end.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, they're catering to the East Indies.
All right. So I still don't understand a lick about cricket, but at least I understand a little bit more.
But yeah, shout out to the U.S. It's the T20 World Cup, first ever World Cup they've played in, and people are mad because they beat Pakistan. So everyone's like, "Oh, all these guys aren't from America; they're all U.S. citizens or American."
So they're playing
born
it here?
They're playing the Super 8 down in. They're in Barbados tonight, but they played in Texas, Florida, and New York for the group stages.
Did they get a like free entry or a free buy because we are the host country, or
Yes. So hosts get in, and now because they went to the Super 8, they're in again in 2 years. So everyone expects Canada to be the other one. So it's kind of starting to grow here, which is kind of exciting.
So it's like World Cup, where like the World Cup
Yes.
country gets an entry into it. That makes sense.
Correct. So in 2 years, India and Sri Lanka get automatic bids. So the way it works, not to get too deep, because everyone's like, "What the fuck is cricket? How many balls are left, or what's a wicket?" The whoever gets into the next World Cup, it's the 8 teams in the Super 8, the hosts, and the next 3 teams that are ranked as far as rankings go in the world for T20. If anyone wants to have an in-depth discussion, we can do that all day. But
All I know
that's
is
your
that
podcast.
I surfed on YouTube. I was like, how come MLB pitchers don't do it? And then I saw a like professional pitcher pitch or bowl or whatever, bowler is whatever
Yeah.
it's called.
Bowler.
And I saw this dude hitting and just smacking the shit out of every single ball that was thrown at him.
So that's the thing, not so much the bowlers. That's different than pitching. I swear they don't want to get U.S. like baseball players involved, which I think they kind of keep it out of the U.S. eyes. Because I'll tell you what, if you put someone like Mark McGwire out there in his day with a bat that's 4 times as wide as a baseball bat and balls that come at you maybe 85 miles an hour, there's no contest. It's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, start getting ready with the exposure that they're seeing right now, like minor league ballers and, pitchers and hitters. Like, I could try it out. Like, I'm sure there's a day where
cricket's a fun game. I play cricket now and then out here. It's a fun game. You don't have to be World Cup guys level.
I was working some night watching like Software Upgrade or something, and my buddy looked at me and he grabbed his cricket bat and his ball that he had in his car, and we went out in the parking lot and whacked around. I nearly took his head off, but it was great.
Yeah, they don't want U.S. baseball players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still saw. Well, so the person pitching was a baseball pitcher.
Oh,
so
okay.
That was like whoever the hitter was. We're just gonna say pitcher and hitter because I don't know the fucking terms.
Bowler and batter, yeah.
Yeah, so whoever the pitcher was like an MLB pitcher, and like this dude's running up, throwing like the ball, and like the dude's just like pink, and he's like knocking it literally out of the ballpark. Just how fast he's turning and hitting. It was
bowling is way different than pitching in baseball. That is.
Well, yes, bowling you take like a 15-pound ball and you throw it at.
Right.
But it's also called bowling and cricket, and it's a way different thing than pitching.
Yeah, let me throw a 15-pound ball at you, and
but batting way different, or not way different, really easy compared to baseball.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I'm telling you, a major league. I'll put Mike Trout out there and watch him just smack 6 after 6 after 6. It'll be dumb. The game will just be over.
Well, we're almost at the hour mark. I know we're going to go a little bit longer because we're just going to do a regular kind of, 1.5 show, no separate news or anything like that tonight. I do want to give a shout out. I know during the show, we made sure to, I put a little, thing about our sponsors, but obviously our sponsors, which is Rochester Mills Beer Company over in Rochester Hills, Michigan, as well as the, Rob said he found his kill shot. I'm looking at the reading stuff. Sadly, North Center Brewing is no longer part of the show due to them going. So now Rochester Mills is our official brewery sponsor here of Better on Draft. Along with that, the Michigan Brewery Map app, which is free on iOS and Android devices. Go download it for free. Find every single Michigan beer and brewery, winery and cidery, there we go, and meadery, all available, including updated hours that update 3 times a month. We also have the Visit Detroit Brew Trail. Go to visitdetroit.com and you can see the Detroit Brew Trail, free information, including discounts at plenty of facilities, unlike Hop Passport or Real Craft Pass. You can go get half offs, discounted beers, discounted swag. And of course, crafttapped.com. Use the code BOD 15% at checkout. But Wendy yelled at me and said she wants to talk more about the Kelsey brothers.
Oh, okay.
So Wendy,
not the Kelsey brothers in per se, but my article did get kind of co-opted into another article. So I kind of wanted to circle back because the whole reason that I focused on that was I had run across an article that said that the Kelsey brothers had bought ownership into a beer that was anti-IPA. And I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, so I thought that was very interesting. In all the articles, the brothers talk about how they're light beer drinking guys. They like it. That's what this makes sense for them to participate in this. So because of that particular article, that was what made me do the research to find out a little bit more about the beer. So it's not that they necessarily are anti-IPA, but their marketing all over their website is no bitterness, beer that tastes like beer, definitely not an IPA. And then if you go down even farther on the website, it says 0% IPA, 100% light beer, 1000% quality. So I'm just curious, is marketing as an anti-IPA, is that something that would get you guys to try and or to want to try the beer?
I mean, not for me, just because I don't care about IPAs. Like, they exist in this world and I just don't want to drink them. So yeah, I wouldn't buy it because of that, but I feel like their market is obviously they're trying to pull not necessarily craft beer drinkers, but they're trying to pull Molson, Labatt, Miller Coors, Budweiser. Like, those are the people they're trying to pull.
Well, and the ones who are sick of the hype garbage, like the hype IPA, the hype sours.
It's not a bad theory.
Yeah.
Well,
But and
I
if you're oh, go ahead, Wendy. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you're hyping it as an anti-IPA, it better not be some other gold beer. Like, it better be a brown, a stout,
it's a lager.
porter. Yeah,
It's a
Ground
lager.
beer.
It's
It's a lawnmower
100% an
it
American
better
light
not be
lager.
another gold beer, or else I'm not gonna try it. It's like,
It is a gold beer.
It is.
that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't like. It's got to be if I'm gonna try it or be excited about it.
We used to have a brewery here. It was a bit off the beaten path, but I would go out of my way to visit it. And it wasn't that they were anti-IPA so much as I don't think they brewed anything over 6%. And that's a perfect kind of brewery to hit in the middle of the day.
734 out here in Michigan is the exact same. They have a low price point. I think this was pre-COVID, but at least all their pints were $5. That was it. Nothing more, nothing less. $5. And none of their beers were high ABV. They were all fairly decent. And decent experience I had too. I had an infected beer there. And I was talking with the brewer and I'm like, man, this tastes something's not right. And I'm like, did I taste something? Because the first thing I think of whenever I taste an infected beer, I'm thinking something's wrong with me. Did I have something that destroyed my palate? Did I eat something spicy? Did I have something right before where it kind of ruined the flavor? And then I'm like, hey, can you try this real quick? And he poured himself a little bit and he wound up taking it right off the tap. He's like, nope, we're going to dump this right a fucking way. It tasted like apple flavored Dr. Pepper.
Ugh. Oh.
And I had it and I'm like, that's just something. It tastes wrong. Like, it doesn't taste like I even got a mispore. It just tasted wrong. And they had it, took it off, and they're like, we're sorry, what do you want? And I'm like, they gave me another beer because obviously I barely touched that one. But that's the one thing that I like. Breweries like that, like Wolverine State, they do have a few higher ABV beers like their Massacre series.
I was gonna say Massacre. There you go.
But it's all lagers, it's all lower ABV stuff. It's nothing really too crazy. Obviously, nothing hype minus Massacre. That shit's so fucking good though.
Yeah.
Since we can't seem to find balanced taps anywhere like that would have, the high ABV, that a couple IPAs, a couple sours, and then lots of beer flavored beer. That doesn't seem to exist. Well, okay, so we get locations that have beer flavored beer, and we go to other locations for the other stuff.
There's plenty of brewery. The issue is that breweries need to stay in business, so they need hype beers, they need hazies, they need IPAs, they need, I think when Grieg was on a couple weeks ago, like, he talked about brewing the hazy because people wanted the hazies. So trying to balance the want to do, and if you look at what Old Nation did, Old Nation created this not created the hype of hazies, but created, the Michigan hazy hype. And then if you go to their brewery, they had like Kolsch's and their Detroit Dwarf, their alt beer, and an English mild, and two like German lagers, like the styles of beer that M43 has allotted Travis to make is amazing. Because I know if M43 didn't exist, we probably wouldn't have Travis Fritz beers anymore. But now you can get Rubicon, and you can get, Italian Pilsner, and B43, which is the brute flavored, hazy IPA, which isn't really an IPA. It's just like a brute pale ale. Like, these different types of beers you can get, but you have to sell your soul to the devil for your high ABVs, your IPAs, your stuff. So to answer your question, Wendy, I would not drink a beer because it's the anti IPA. I would drink it because it's Taylor Swift's boyfriend.
That makes sense. I mean, that's why I would do it. But anyways, so I do have a couple of things I want to say before I close that one out. So I think it's interesting, one, that they call it beer flavored beer when it's an American light lager, which style wise is the least amount of flavor in a beer. I always find it ironic when I hear people say I want beer flavored beer and then they ask for a Bud Light or a Miller Lite. It cracks me up every time. The other thing is, though, is that Ken, you mentioned Wolverine Brewing. And when I poured at Webb one time, I was pouring for Wolverine when they first started out, and they only had their light lager. That was the only thing that they sold that time. And they billed themselves as the Bud Light of Webb. And they had a constant line because, at every beer festival, there's going to be the people who are there with their beer friends who don't actually like beer. So they're looking for a Bud Light or something like that. And I think it's interesting, though, that they're starting out with this lager as that brand. Chances are they're going to want to expand at some point. Why would you say, oh, we're definitely not this? Because at some point you are going to want to expand what styles you have because you're going to want to go more than just Bud Light. You know what I mean? Or a light lager.
There's still a lot of styles outside of IPA and sour.
I
guess they aren't anti-sour, but there's still a lot of styles and colors. There's even more colors that they can look at.
That's true.
More colors, yes. Where's the red? Where's the brown?
Well,
I just thought it was interesting that it's very similar. Like I saw that happen. And it's not that they're saying they're anti-IPA. They're saying the beer that they have is not an IPA.
So if you go to the Wolverine site, which if you're listening to the podcast, obviously go check us out on YouTube. You can see the video itself. So we're showing what is currently the lagers that Wolverine Beer is making. So you've got like their lager, your pale, your red, your IPL, a New Zealand Pils, and a light lager. Like that's their yearly round. But if you look at their other beers, like there's a lot of different styles of lager beer in there. Like Vienna lager, you got a wheat, a brown, a coffee, another Pils. Like they do a pretty good job, obviously staying in the lager facility,
And they have a nice website that's not giving me cancer.
no cancer for this. But I want to mention something because we were talking about like being anti-IPA and talking about all of the different styles. I'm going to give you a tap list of styles. It's about 12. This is a newer brewery. Amber, Stout, Triple, IPA, New England IPA, English Mild, Blonde, California Common, Imperial Stout, Pale, Kolsch, and a Seltzer. I think that's a pretty good variety of beers without having like 60 taps like Dragon Mead.
Yeah, that's a good mix.
Yeah.
This is, of course, former multi-time guest, former owner of Liberty Street, now owner of One for All Brewery, Joe Walters. This is his new facility. You can find facilities like this all across the country, but they're going to be the small breweries that you have to seek out. They are not going to be your big breweries. They're not going to be your Perrin, Bell's has enough taps where they can do it. Same with Dragonmead, Kunin, which we know locally. But most of these places, they have their shtick, like German style beers, Belgian style beers. They're an IPA house. They're a sour house. They're a, hazy house. Like that's just kind of, it's become like a shtick now. Like you have to create some type of shtick to get people in. Like nobody's going to Holmes for their, coffee Kolsch. I am, but other people aren't.
That's not true.
I mean, there's a reason why it's there. It's because people still drink it, but that's also like usually the only beer that they offer that isn't a sour or an IPA in some form or fashion. All right. Was that the bow on it? I wanted to make sure
That
you
was
got
it.
that.
That was it. I just wanted to talk about that one. The beer flavored beer thing is really what I wanted to touch on. Cracks me up every time.
I mean, it always reminds me of that one. I think it was Lewis Black, like the coffee flavored coffee. Like when he was talking about like lattes and mochas and, you know, hazelnut cream stout, not stouts, but hazelnut cream coffees. Like he just wanted coffee flavored coffee. I think I've talked about it like beer flavored beer. Like I don't necessarily want it as a lager. I just want like regular ass beer. Like talk to Matt Bush. And if you tell him about like a key lime Kolsch and he's going to have a brain aneurysm.
Oh yeah. Oh
then
yeah.
It's not like a clean Kolsch.
Beer flavored beer. I don't mean an American light lager. I mean an English mild. I mean, you know, an ESB.
Right.
I mean, when I hear beer flavored beer though, I think of light beer. I think of lagers. I think that's just when I hear that phrase, that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's something
when I hear
and,
I want a beer, that's what I hear the person asking for, is that American light lager is a beer. And I can't, is it? No, the people who do Brown Note, they made a beer.
Against the grain.
Against the grain, yeah.
I was like, I know this one. I've been there.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, before we go, I did crack open one more beer. Wendy, Dan, and I went to the closing night of Rochester Mills, and I got myself a nice 11.5% Belgian quad to finish the night.
Nice.
So that's one of the lower ABV beers I have behind.
Jeez. Can you remind me again the Rochester Mills things? Because I've been to the brew pub a bunch.
So the brew pub, the production facility, which was owned by Two Roots, is no longer there. So they folded and sold off all their equipment. A lot of their recipes did go to the brew pub, but the brew pub is contracting their distro and their beers through Dragon Bead. It just so happens that the person who now works for Rochester Mills, the brew pub, is married to one of the brewers at Dragon Mead, even though both companies have been along for so fucking long that it's, you know, it's none the wiser. It's just a cute meat love story between guests that we've had on the show, Eric Brigham and Amanda Pants.
Plus, it means we get milkshake stout distributed still. So,
yes. Milk in 12-ounce cans now too. So,
oh, nice.
They're gonna bring back the Advent package.
I don't know. I think I have one package of Dan's still.
Yes.
But there might be an opportunity to head over to Indianapolis here in about 7 months. Daniel, mark your calendar.
Okay.
Because there might be a Rumble that is Royal happening in Indianapolis.
Royal site.
Yeah.
With, it looked like 2 follow-ups after that too.
So I might have some beers to go. Wendy, obviously you're invited to come and watch some men in stretchy pants fake fight over a belt.
Wendy's a huge fan.
I used to be.
We could go
I
drink
used to watch
beer
wrestling
there.
all the time.
Near wherever this ends up
we'll just
happening.
have Joe Hendry show up and everyone will have a good time.
So see, she might get that because Joe Henry's huge on TikTok. So she might actually
That's true.
know
That
who
is
Joe
true.
Hendry is.
I don't actually know who that is.
That's okay. I'll get messages from my fiance on TikTok, and I'm like, what fucking side of TikTok are you on? Because like,
You
there
want
are
me to start
days.
sending what I see on there?
Probably not.
No.
Probably not.
I see a lot of beer and a lot of animals.
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
I get a lot of bowling and Dirt Man.
Yeah, mine's way different than what all you see.
Dirt man.
Speaking
And
of TikTok,
recipes.
and wrestling, not recipes. I don't get recipes. Speaking of TikTok, you can follow us on TikTok at Better on Draft, of course, on all the social medias, Better on Draft, Facebook, Instagram, even Untapped. You can friend us on Untapped, find out what we were drinking. You can like us on the rest of our social medias. That's Threads, X, Twitch, Kick, YouTube, Better on Draft, betterondraft.com.
Social.
We do just Not that
Whatever
many
the
people on that
old-
site anymore.
Whatever the old one was before Truth Social, we're probably on there. I can't even think of the name
Oh,
of it.
geez. I don't even remember.
You know what I'm talking about. but
I
can't
I
think of the
do, and
name
it's
of
going to
it.
come to me as the show is over. Yes,
We're
like
the only
us on,
ones on there, but we're there.
yes. Better on Draft social media, aka the Michigan Beer Brewery Map app, free to download. That is going to do it for myself, Rob, Wendy, and Dan. We will be back one day. We'll figure it out. We got the
One of
holiday
these
coming
days.
up. The 4th of July is coming up, so and my birthday. I'm still in my 30s, so we still have to enjoy it. Just want to
How many years anniversary is this since the decision now?
Oh
That also
geez.
happened on your
Oh
birthday?
geez, that did happen on my birthday. That was when we basically bought out Royal Oak Brewery of
Yeah.
beer.
They're running out of beer.
It's obviously better on draft lore from the older days, but we went, that would have been 2009, I think, or 2009 or 2010.
That sounds
And
accurate.
the
Yeah.
decision when LeBron James went to Miami Heat, we were
Yep.
at the Royal Oak Brewery, and I brought like 60 to 70 people there, and like just every single like 20 to 30 minutes, another beer went off tap. Like we were just drinking so much, and then we went to a different. We went to Augie's, I think, because we were like,
Yeah.
well, sooner or later, we just there's very few choices left, and there wasn't really much to do. So, better on draft. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. We'll be back. Follow us on all of our socials. You'll find it out. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft. Have a good night.
Cheers.